Okay. Hello. My name is Michael Canny, and this is my presentation on myths in video games. Um, okay. So to begin, these are the things I'll be discussing in my presentation. I have two tenets and the game that I'm using for my presentation. So the tenets, the first one is myths as promiscuous and postmodern. And my second one is myth making as a continuing process. And then the game that I'll be using for this presentation is Assassin's Creed Odyssey. Um, so to begin here, myths um, being promiscuous and postmodern. Um, Myths are shaped and created using popular culture, which is what makes them promiscuous and postmodern. Assassin's Creed Odyssey mixes aspects of different genres, like role-playing games and the mechanics that come with them, um, fantasy and mythology, and historical simulation. So, the blend of the genres in such a like myth heavy video game makes it promiscuous and postmodern. Um, Mythic creatures are enemies and boss fights in the game. So the myths are being reshaped to fit within the game's world and the game mechanics. So the the myths are ever changing and fitting with different forms of media. Um, in order to be told in a different way. The Animus in game is a tech computer company type thing where you pretty much go into a simulation, and that's how. So pretty much the game is set in modern day, and the player is a person in modern day going through a simulation of these events in the past. So it presents myths as interactive simulation, which is a very postmodern, type of experience. And in the article, Using the Hero's Journey in Games, Troy Dunaway discusses the hero's journey and how it is adapted into video games. Assassin's Creed Odyssey is very much a story about a hero, which is the player, on a journey to uncover truth about their lost family, other communities within the game, and these mythic beasts that I have been talking about. So here are my images. The first image on the left is the boss fight with the Cerberus. And then on the right is the device that Animus created and uses for simulating these historical events. Um, and so here's my next tenet is myth making as a continuing process. Assassin's Creed Odyssey presents multiple ways that prove myths and their creation continue to this day. Um, so to begin, the Animus stores history and myths as data, which can be replayed and experienced repeatedly. So, the myths are, I don't know, they still exist in modern day society. It's, something that is continuing to be experienced because of the Animus. And then I have Assassin's Creed Odyssey constantly recreates the mythic story template of the Templars versus the Assassins. This template resembles freedom versus order, the Assassins being freedom, Templars being order. Every installment of the franchise is a different version of the same storyline. The Templars aren't as like in games before Odyssey, the Templars were very much the main, villain of the story, but it changes a little bit in the more recent games, but the same type of mythic story template exists, it's freedom versus order is a constant in the Assassin's Creed universe. So, you know, that continues here. And then I have the player creates the myth. There's a main storyline in the game, and there are specific events and major things that happen in the storyline, regardless of who's playing and how they play. However, in the missions, you're given choice and freedom to complete the missions how you see fit. So you can complete the mission in a stealthy way, or you can do the opposite and you go in like guns blazing. And however you decide to complete the mission, that becomes canon in your player's storyline and your myth. So the player is writing the myth as they play the game. Um, and then in the article Myth in Contemporary Society and Politics, the short version by Arthur George, he claims that myth is alive and well in modern society and that humans are naturally and unavoidably myth makers. These claims obviously fall in line with the argument that myth making isn't just historical. Here are my images for this section. The first one is a player, killing a guard in a stealthy way as part of the choice of creating their own myth. The next two images kind of are similar to that, where the player is creating their own myth in the things that they choose to wear, the weapons that they choose to use, and the gender of the character they choose. And then the bottom right is a pretty you know, I guess I could say iconic image of the Assassins versus the Templars. This isn't from Odyssey, but from the franchise. The assassin is the guy in white. The Templar is the guy in black. Um, and this is my works cited page. So yeah, thank you.